We're back talking about the economy with CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin, Wall Street reporter for the New York Times, Lauren Hirsch, and editor of the Free Press, Joe Nocera. Lauren, I'm curious your thoughts on the possibility of an AI bubble. You wrote a story in the Times about a $3.2 trillion deal-making frenzy was spurred by the AI economy. And something that I'm starting to hear concern about is the fact that, as we led up to the mortgage crisis, you had all of these, basically banks chopping up bad mortgages, putting them in with pretty good mortgages and reselling those. And so you had people buying, good, bad, indifferent. And now there's that fear that when there's an IPO, you have all these AI firms that are piling their profits in there and they're investing. So once again, you have this sector that people fear are going to be facing a bubble, investing to enlarge that own bubble. How much should we be concerned about that and the possibility of a repeat of 2008?
I mean, there's a couple of similarities that you're already seeing between now and prior bubbles, which is a lot of people going to the market. That's oftentimes a sign of things kind of being up at the top. You saw, obviously, the SpaceX IPO. Google is hitting the open markets. That's generally a sign that there might be capital drying up in other ends. That being said, if you talk to people on Wall Street who, of course, are going to tell you there is no bubble because that's their business, there are some major differences, notably these massive companies that are doing all the spending, Facebook, Google, they have a lot of money. So it's a lot more sturdy in some ways than what you've seen in prior bubbles. The question is how long it's going to last. We've obviously seen a bit of a pullback in the past week, but companies are plowing forward. Mergers and acquisitions aren't everything, but they are a sign of something. And one of the things they are a sign of is confidence. So clearly the fact that CEOs are doing these massive deals, there's more mega deals now than we've seen in a number of years, implies they're confident and not yet seeing kind of red flags, warning signs are at the top. But of course, this is all, it could all come crashing down at any moment. All of these bets and all of these deals are largely being propelled by this AI enthusiasm. So once that starts pulling back, it really could create a ripple effect.
Yeah, and of course, you talk to most people in the sector, and they have what some would call toxic positivity. Everything's going to be great. AI is not going to hurt anybody. Robotics is not going to hurt anybody. But, Joe, let me just, if you don't mind, just indulge me in a quick story here. I would say from about 2017 through 2022, 2023, anytime Mika and I would have friends over for dinner, mainly they would be Democrats that had never voted for a Republican in their life. After all, Mika was cooking the dinner. But when we sat around the table with these lifelong liberals, they would all talk about how their children were at the best schools in America, but they were afraid to raise their hand, because the woke culture had gotten so out of control. If they said the wrong thing, they wouldn't do well in that class, and they would immediately be socially ostracized, right? So that was then. Now, and I'm sure you've heard some of the same things over the last couple of years, those kids, those students have now been trying to get jobs for a year or two, and they're getting AI replies. No help needed. No help. I talked to a really successful attorney last week who told me he doesn't need associates anymore. He's like, why do I need somebody out of law school to give me answers that Claude can give me in 5 minutes if I put in the right prompts, and I know how to put in the right prompts. So let's talk about that. You've got the toxic positivity coming from Silicon Valley saying everything's going to be okay. And then you have what I think most parents I talk to in America are saying about their children out of school. They can't find jobs.
Well, it is very true that in consulting, in PE, private equity, in on Wall Street, a lot of the junior level jobs are no longer needed because AI can do them better and faster. Consulting in particular. All the junior consultants used to take 2 weeks to solve a problem. Claude can do it in about 15 minutes. I don't believe in toxic positivity, but I do believe, Joe, that over the course of history, the creation of new technologies has given rise to the creation of new kinds of jobs. Will that happen with AI? I don't know, but I think we ought to be open-minded about whether or not AI is going to destroy, jobs forever, or whether, in fact, it will ultimately create different kinds of jobs.
Yeah, different kind of jobs and making us more productive. That's the question, and that's the challenge of our time. It's certainly the challenge of the next 10 years as we make this transition. Andrew, finally to you. You cover the economy every day. You read about it every day. You write about it every day. You interview people about it every day. So with everything that you know right now, as July is winding down, 2026, you look out over the horizon. What are you the most optimistic about regarding this economy, and what concerns you the most about this economy?
What am I most optimistic about? I'm actually most optimistic that the spending on AI is going to continue and continue apace for quite some time. This could go on for multiple years, in which case there should be some kind of trickle-down effect across the economy. So on one end, I'm optimistic about that because there's sort of a flow of capital coming into the system that almost, I don't know where it's going to end. The flip side is, what am I most worried about? I'm most worried that we're effectively building data centers and we're building an entire new ecosystem that is going to leave a lot of other people left behind. I don't know if Joe is right or wrong in terms of whether we'll have more jobs on the other end, but I'm certain that there will be a transition period that's going to be painful. And I think that pain could lead to some real questions, again, about capitalism and everything else.
All right, CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin, Wall Street reporter for the New York Times, Lauren Hirsch, and editor of the Free Press, Joe Nocera. Thank you all so much for being with us. Greatly appreciate it.